Hi, ladies and gentlemen. This is Tina Hall from MasterfulU, and I'm with Barbara and Ress. Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So Barbara Ress is a professional engineer and an attorney. Wow, that's pretty big. She is a 40-year veteran of construction and real estate development industries. Well, you just took it on, didn't you, Barbara?
Yeah, I did.
One of only a handful of women engineers. Russ endured and overcame much intimidation, sexual harassment, discrimination during her early years on job sites. Russ held many positions, including draftsman, estimator, project manager, mechanical superintendent while working for construction contractors, and in executive roles working as owner's representative and director of development for several real estate companies. You're a powerhouse, Barbara.
Thank you.
Barbara worked for the President of the United States, first as the Vice President in charge of construction of the iconic Trump Tower, and later as the Executive Vice President in charge of development. She has overseen projects across the UK and the US. Russ has written a memoir, All Alone on the 68th Floor, How One Woman Changed the Face of Construction. I have no doubt I have to read your book. I'm sure you've got lots of tales to tell, Barbara.
Certainly do.
The book tells the story about how the best math student in high school class of 800 was steered into teaching by her advisors and how she found engineering. She details the experiences of discrimination from college through her entire career and the impact and damage they cause. Ress offers advice to women about dealing with sexual harassment and avoiding the mental anguish and the challenge to self-esteem and confidence she endured. It teaches women how to avoid the doubt and self-blame that often accompanies it. The book is both entertaining and inspirational. She's also penned many op-ed pieces about women in construction, her philosophy over feminism, and her experience working with Trump. She speaks extensively to women's groups and industry groups about construction and women's role in it. A graduate of CCNY Engineering and Rutgers Law School, Russ is the mother of 2 children and lives in Bergen County, New Jersey. Welcome, Barbara.
Again, thank you.
You're an impressive woman, so tell us, with all your experience and all your wisdom, how the heck do we manage in such an environment?
Sometimes I look at my life and I say, what the hell? I mean, how did I even do that? And why? Sometimes I say to myself.
Yes.
I think that we all find ourselves in the position of facing obstacles, and you reach a point where you know you really have no choice and you do the best you can.
Sure.
And I think most women do have the mental fortitude to rise to the occasion. It's the kind of thing that sexual harassment can deprive a woman of. And that's one of my big causes. I deal a lot with women in non-traditional roles, and I find that in that particular kind of work, everything is worse. The discrimination is worse, the intimidation is worse, and sexual harassment is worse. Having said that, I would be very surprised if there's a woman working, not working, doing both, staying home and trying to earn a living, who hasn't had some form of sexual harassment in her life. And it might not only be at work, it could be from her own relatives, or it could be from her neighborhoods, and others in her neighborhood. Sexual harassment is pervasive. It is at the very core of our societal essence. It is everywhere, and it is basically, I think, although, when I talk about it, I talk male on female. There certainly is female on female, there's male on male, and there is even female on male.
Sure.
But for the most part, it is male on female. And I tend to talk in that, knowing that, the other situations can arise as well.
Sure. And do you think it's something that has gotten better, will get better, and maybe get better in the future?
Here's what I think. It's gotten better in the past year, I believe.
Okay.
And the reason it's gotten better is because there is an awareness. You know, a year and a half ago, it's a year and a half ago now almost, on the 21st it will be, we had a march in Washington.
Right.
And it was a primarily women, but men as well, and children, but a group of people who stood together for something.
Yes.
That something was a kind of solidarity. It was women talking to women, basically, and their allies, saying, we have to help each other.
Yes.
We have been waiting, and we've been waiting 50 years, and we've been waiting 100 years, and we've been waiting 1,000 years for someone to do it for us.
Mm-hmm.
And we have finally realized at this point in time that we are the ones that are going to have to raise the subject. We're going to have to bring it to the forefront, and
Right.
that's what happened. And I think as a result of the Women's March and the solidarity and the feelings and the discussions, that we have had a kind of a epiphany or a rebirth,
Mm-hmm.
actually, in our society, especially American society, about the woman's role.
Right.
And from that came two very, very good things. One is women running for office and being involved in politics.
Right.
And you can see that already historically over the past election. We saw a lot of women making gains, and
Mm-hmm.
now I think you'll see more women in the run.
Yeah.
The other thing is, we didn't create the Me Too movement. That goes back to sexual assault among
Right.
disadvantaged women. And what we did was we took that and we brought it into the general population, because yes, the sexual assault is horrific, and we have not all experienced that, but we have all experienced some kind of sexual intimidation, harassment, discrimination, and we're
Mm-hmm.
all talking about it.
Right.
We're all saying, look, this happened to you, it happened to me too. And that is so important, because I know when I was a person working in the field on a construction site, there were no women. There was no one that I could talk to and say, look what happened. There
Right.
was no one that could tell me it happened to me too.
Right.
But the most important thing was there was no one that could tell me this was not my fault.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's what happened to me. And I'm happy to share that. A lot of people say, well, it's very personal. Well, it's personal, but it's important. And you should know this, because this can help you and it can
Right.
help others.
Right.
Not being able to talk to someone else, to know that the experience is shared and it's not individualized, is really very similar to what happens to rape women. Of course, rape victims, rather. It is not the same. It is not as severe, but it still can be extremely severe.
Sure.
They do tend to blame themselves.
Yes.
And that is a horror, and people have been working on that for years, and I think it is getting better now, and I think the original Me Too movement helped with that a lot.
Yes.
But as far as sexual harassment is concerned, it's very easy to blame yourself.
Yeah.
The notion, did I say the wrong thing?
Right.
Did I wear the wrong thing?
Right.
Should I have reacted differently to that?
Mm-hmm.
That's where it starts.
Right.
It boils up and it moves and it creates an explosion, and the end result of that explosion can very well be the destruction of self-esteem.
Right.
That I really deserve what happened to me.
Right.
I don't deserve to be treated better. And to be honest, to a small degree, and it's I've accomplished a lot in my life, and people say, "Oh, you never took anything from anyone." Well, on the outside, I never did. No, I took crap and I gave it back, and I gave it back tenfold. But you know what? On the inside, I was crushed. I was damaged.
Yeah.
And I bear those scars today.
Sure.
If the things that happened 30 years ago. So I don't want that happening to other women. And I think everybody feels the same way about it. I think the more we talk about it, the
Mm-hmm.
more we examine it, explain it, understand it,
Yeah.
it will become much less. It won't go away, because human nature is never going to change,
Sure.
but it will be less. And I think those are the two very important things that happen as a result of the women's movement. It's
Right. So
bringing
do you think, Barbara, sorry to interrupt you, do you
power.
think that um, women were just as harsh on you as the men? Did they support you in your role as one of the only women in the industry, from, let's say, the secretaries or receptionists and stuff? Or did they assume that you rose to where you are because you slept your way to the top, and or you did things to get to, the inside jobs, or, you know what I mean? You must have dealt with all of that. It can't be just from men. I'm sure it was also coming from women.
I have to tell you that um, I have the kind of personality that I get along very well with people, and
Okay.
I get along with women. And I offered the women in the office, the few women that I came into contact, something that they had not encountered before, and that was respect.
Sure.
So you give and you get. And so
Right.
I made friends with the few secretaries on the job and things like that. And so they liked me, and they tended not to hold things against me and to think
Okay.
bad things of me. I
Well,
will
that's good.
tell you, I will tell you that there were certain women absolutely that resented me,
Sure.
which is human nature. There were certain women that, well, wives, interestingly enough,
Yes.
they split. Some of them love me. Boy, this is great what you're doing. Go get them, knock them
Right.
dead.
Right.
And the others were, yeah, who does she think she is? You know,
Right. Right.
why is she taking a job from a man? And
Oh,
you did find a lot of that,
interesting. And do
because
you think that was generational?
to a degree, I mean, I don't know what you would call a, a white female equivalent of an Uncle Tom, but
Mm.
there are women like that. I mean, a
Yeah.
classic example in our modern history is a woman named Phyllis Schlafly, who you may not know. She passed away, and President Trump made a tribute to her. She was a horror,
Oh.
absolute horror.
Oh
And
no.
she made a name for herself by saying that women should not work outside the home, and women should be
Mm.
subservient to men, and all this kind of thing. Meanwhile, she was traveling all over the country and making a name for herself and making lots of money. But she was that kind of woman, and there still are women like
Sure.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. How important do you think it is for women to start supporting each other more, as opposed to tearing each other down, or um, questioning their rise in a company because the assumption is that they must have done something sexually or some favor of some sort in order for them to advance? Because, why else would they have been chosen to rise, right?
Well, there's lots of ways to look at that. Number one, unfortunately, there are women who got ahead because of that. There
Sure.
are. There are women that admit it and say, look, this is what I had to do. You had to do your thing, and I had to do my thing. And I'm kind of two different minds about that. I
Okay.
haven't settled on
Sure.
that. Again, in my experience, I did not meet a lot of women, so I don't know of any woman that ever thought that I slept around. I do know of many, many men who thought that, and I know of
Okay.
certain bosses I had who let that be thought of, who put the word
Right.
out that they were doing that.
Oh my.
But women attacking other women, you know, it's kind of like it's a bit of a myth or a legend in our society, and that's what they want us to think.
Mm.
They want us to be enemies.
Okay.
The people in control, the white males,
Sure.
have set this up so that we go at each other, and that we and they tell us in their books and their sociology studies and all these things that have haunted us for hundreds of years, ever since the advent of Freud and his cronies. Women are jealous of men. Women compete with each other.
Right.
Nonsense. I have
Mm.
never found this in my life. I mean, I know there's Mean Girls. I know the
Yeah.
the play and everything, and there are certain people like that. But overall, I think that women do want to work with each other. I think women want to support each other.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they're afraid because they don't know what's out there, because they've been told over and over again that they compete. They are not team players.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the case. It's not the case at all. And I meet especially young women. They want so much to hear from me. They want to know what to do. They want to know how to act and who to talk to. And I keep telling them, women friends, women mentors, people that you can mentor. That's what
Right.
it's all about.
Right. Well, interestingly enough, I have a girlfriend who is a corporate lawyer downtown Toronto, and she's got a female mentor. And she doesn't get whole lot of support from her female counterpart because her female counterpart decided not to have a family, and she did. And so basically for her, she's kind of on her own in the sense that if she's got a sick child, then the female mentor has no compassion for that. It's, you've got a job to do, get it done. And so I think, although some of us don't tear each other down, I think there's not as much support as there certainly could be. And I think that we get so caught up in trying to be a part of that group, which is mostly white males, that we miss the mark on trying to be supportive of each other a little bit.
Well, I think that there's a reason for that, and I feel that I'm part of that.
Okay.
I was 36 when I had my first child.
Okay.
I had two at the same time. Um, and I always felt that I went to work. As a matter of fact, I worked the day I gave birth, and I was back at work 2 weeks later. My children were premature; they were in the hospital. It was very, very difficult, but I was there working.
Right.
And when they started talking about paid leave and stuff like that, I was resentful of that. And I think it's kind of natural that I should say I had to do it my way. Why? And it was my daughter, my child, Ress, who taught me about this and how ridiculous my attitude was and how important mothering is to society.
Yes.
And I was raised in this male-dominated society that didn't put a value on motherhood.
Right.
And it took me to have children and to think about it. Immediately when I had children, I knew that that was the single most important thing I had ever done and the greatest contribution I could ever make. I knew. But what I didn't realize was how important it is to society to promote this and aid it and foster it. Now, your friend's mentor didn't have children.
Right.
And whether she wanted them or she didn't want them, she resents your friend for having them.
Right, probably.
In my mind about that.
Yeah.
And so there is an element of jealousy there. And to
Sure.
be honest with you, not every woman is a paragon. Not everyone is great. Not everyone is really nice. And what she's doing is just plainly not nice. And it's not fair.
Right.
There are not nice people. There are unfair people. And you have to, just because one woman does that doesn't make it, it's not.
All women.
Yeah, right. It's not an addition of how women act.
So do you think that we blanket women too much? Because like you're saying, there's kind of this notion that in those professions, because they're predominantly white male, that that the women are kind of catty and non-supportive and aggressive and would be willing to tear each other down to advance themselves. Do you think that's a wrong impression of that industry or any industry? Well, I don't know, because I'm not in that field. So, but in general, in the male predominant positions.
Well, there are certain positions that are almost by definition, what's the word? Winner take all kinds of
aggressive. Yeah.
Yes, and cutthroat, as they would say. And law is kind of like that.
Sure.
And you find people, and you find it with men too. The thing is, when you do it with women, you call them names.
Right.
You see it with men, they're being aggressive, they're being assertive, they're claiming what's theirs. Women are being catty, they're
bitchy.
Also, they're bitchy. Yeah, exactly. And it's the same behavior, except that when a woman does it, it's something that
it's negative.
On, and when a man does it, it's something that we sort of respect.
Right. And why do you think that is? How do we change that?
Well, I think we are changing it, and I think, like I said, everything is coming from the women. It's the women who say, "I'm accepting this. I know what this behavior is like. I've seen it before. I've seen it in men." And, you know, I may have to be part of this dog eat dog world too. And if I am, I will do the best I can to retain my identity and still
Right.
play the game, because at the end of the day, you may have to play the game. This is
Right.
choices that we make. And if you choose to be in an occupation where, winner takes all, then that's the occupation you chose. But it's
Right.
not because you're a woman. It's not that you're a bitch or anything like that.
Right. Right.
You are going after something and you want to get it. And in your mind, acting a way that I would think would not be appropriate is justified.
Right. Right. So, what do you think about feminism? How has it played its role in a negative or a positive way?
Well, in terms of what in particular?
Well, for me, feminism has confused the lines a lot. And I don't know if it's necessarily feminism or just how it was kind of drawn up, but women now are either mostly the breadwinner in the family, or they're working two jobs, being mom, well, three jobs, being mom, wife, and worker bee. And they don't feel like they have excellence in any area in some ways because they're torn between all these positions. And so, yes, it's great that we have something outside of the home, but has it been detrimental to us in the sense that now we're not focused on just the family and or ourselves and or society?
Well, it sort of goes back to, interestingly, when I was first starting out, it was the have it all
Yes.
notion.
Right.
And, I was very young, and people would say, well, you want it all. I don't know if I'm allowed to speak quite the way I normally do, but I said, screw that.
Right.
What men have it all. They have families, they have jobs.
Mm-hmm.
What is it about having it all? I don't want it all. I'm not
Right.
looking to be a millionaire and gorgeous and have children. And I just want to be normal. I want to have a
Right.
family like everyone else's. I want to have a job. I want to be able to look myself in the eye. That's all I ever want. So having
Right.
it was a ridiculous notion. What I saw back then was a backlash.
Mm.
The backlash against women having it all, and there was
Right.
articles, and it was, and then, of course, maybe I'm paranoid, but I feel that most of this stuff is started and encouraged by men.
Yes.
Now, my words, I mean, what I just said is clearly proven by this ridiculous, horrific backlash we have to the Me Too movement.
Mm. Yeah.
Men are saying, I can't work with a woman. I can't talk to her. And men are now actually avoiding women in certain businesses,
Oh, interesting.
not inviting them to meetings. I just wrote an article about this, which I have not published yet. But in it, I find that this is happening even to the extent where companies are not promoting women in the same ways, giving them certain jobs,
Oh,
and excuse me, not including them in meetings.
interesting. And what occupation specifically, or is there a specific occupation or just in
You
general?
know what? I think that probably these numbers that I got probably came out of the financial services industry.
Okay.
That would be my guess.
Right.
The good news about that is sexual harassment, by the way, so that everyone knows that sees this,
Yeah.
is very difficult to prove.
Yes.
About 4% of the cases actually make it to court. Okay.
Right. Right.
Um, Sexual discrimination is fairly easy to prove.
Okay.
You don't invite a woman to a meeting
Mm-hmm.
because she's a woman.
Right.
You are discriminating and you are screwed. So good. Go ahead and try it, fellas.
Right.
Have a good time. Keep us out and you'll see what's coming at you.
Right. Right.
So I do think that that backlash, I mean, you have people like our vice president who says that he would not have dinner with a woman unless his wife was with him, or not even dinner, a meal with a woman unless his wife was with him. That's our vice president.
Wow.
statement.
And is that because of a religious thing, or if that's because of the fear of being accused of sexual harassment?
I think it's because of a personal thing where he does not feel that men and women should
Interconnect
connect. Yeah, yeah,
and be friends.
be friends and be colleagues. Even I mean that is really goes to the root. I mean it's beyond religion or anything else.
Yeah.
But as far as the backlash is concerned, I don't know if you're aware of it, but there's something called oh uh, oh, I can't think of the name of it. It's celibate, made to be celibate. A group of people. I forget what the nickname is, but they're oh, involuntary celibates. They're called incels. These are people who say that women have not, will not, don't want to have sex with them, and therefore they're forced to be celibate.
Oh my Lord.
This is a big thing. This is
What?
there. Oh yeah, I mean you got to look this up in cells, because there was a car crash in Canada somewhere where a man drove into a group of women, and that was the express
Yeah.
purpose. And there are lots of groups online that say that rape should not be illegal.
Oh my good grief.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of this. So there's a lot of this misogynistic, but not even misogyny so much as this sexual empowerment of men over
Hmm.
women, that just says that women have to succumb. And now you're seeing like there was a shooting recently. I forget where it was, but the young woman, one of the victims, the guy was taunting her, and he wanted to go out with her, and she didn't want to go out with him, and he was stalking her. But
Mm.
the way the headlines read, it was because of this woman not accepting him or ridiculing him, whatever, that he went and shot up this school.
Oh my good grief.
Yeah, no, that's true. And you know what? I should print this up and some of this stuff and just make it available to you and anyone else that wants to see it, even though it's
Hmm.
out there, but I have access to it, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you have that, and then you have just the regular backlash, which I hear from people, from men that I know, otherwise reasonable men that say, you can't even say you're wearing a nice dress to a woman and you'll be sued for sexual harassment.
Oh wow.
And
So has it gone to that extreme because of men being fearful, or has it gone to that extreme because women are taking things the wrong way? Like, is society so super sensitive and being so politically correct that they can't just have friendships with the opposite sex?
No, I don't think that it is women taking things the wrong way. I think
Okay.
that women tend to take a lot more than maybe they even should take. The
Sure.
amount of reporting is a small fraction. I don't have the number off my head, but maybe it's 25% of the incidents. It's a
Right.
fraction of the incidents that actually get reported.
Right.
And, you know, just so you know, in order to prove sexual harassment, you have to prove either quid pro quo, which if you don't sleep with me, you won't have this job, that kind of thing, or
Right.
you prove the creation of
Intimidated.
no, it's actually a hostile environment,
Oh, okay.
in which things are so bad that a woman cannot do her job, either emotionally or physically or both.
Okay.
In order to prove that sexual harassment in a court, the standard applied is that the activity which gave rise to the complaint has to be severe and pervasive. And
Mm.
and that was the name of my article, actually, severe and pervasive. It's impossible, almost
Sure.
impossible. And I can give you examples, even examples of male on male harassment, where the courts decided, well, this only happened 2 or 3 times, so it wasn't pervasive.
Mm.
Even though in one particular case, and this is male on male, a supervisor threatened to rape a person that worked for him. And
Wow.
he did that several times, and the court decided it was severe, but it wasn't pervasive.
Wow.
And there was another case where a woman was touched on her breast, physically touched. That is assault in our country. That is
Right.
assault. and the judge decided that because it was over the clothes,
Oh my goodness.
it wasn't severe. And I'm not
Wow.
making this up. So to any man who thinks or would like to say that he can't tell a woman she looks nice, he's patently full of crap.
Right.
Full of crap. And this is nonsense. And
Yeah.
it's BS, and it's being perpetrated against us.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, what we have to do is we have to deal with the fact of this backlash, and we have to be careful. We have
Right.
to pick our spots.
Yeah.
One thing we have to do, and I tell this to women, when somebody harasses you or makes you uncomfortable, it's very hard for women to do this, but you have to tell them.
Yeah.
You have to say, I don't like that.
Right.
Because one of the new factors that's finding its way into the standard of determination of what creates sexual harassment is that the victimizer was aware that the victim was uncomfortable.
Mm.
So that in a case where a claim is made, a person can go in very easily and just say, I didn't know. She didn't.
Right. Okay.
How was I to know? I was only kidding. And that goes on a lot. And those cases get tossed. They get tossed from the EEOC. They get tossed on the lowest level.
Right.
Because the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission knows it's only going to take the fights it can win.
Yes.
And it knows what it can win.
Right.
So much is thrown out there that actually women have gone to court in civil cases. You have to go to the EEOC first. And after they said, we're not taking it, women have gone to court and pursued their claims and won.
Oh, good.
Yeah. But it's like I said, it's very, very, very difficult to prove sexual harassment, and
Sure.
all nonsense is just a misnomer.
Right.
And you have the people like the guy in California who wrote that piece about how women really are inferior and they can't do the math and the coding and stuff like that. And there was an article just recently in the Post, which is a New York newspaper, and it's a terrible, but it was about children being encouraged beyond their skills. In other words, giving everybody a trophy, even though giving the losers.
Oh, okay.
And you know what? I tend to agree with that. I tend to think that it's not a good idea to mask failure with success because you're worried about people's feelings being hurt.
Sure.
The way to develop a psyche and a self-esteem is to be able to evaluate, accept your shortcomings,
Yes.
try to achieve, and to respect yourself for not winning, but for doing it modest. So I agree with the basic premise, but the way this article was presented, they talked about a female firefighter who couldn't, she got hurt on the job, and therefore they paid her to do a desk job. And the premise was that women are not qualified to be firefighters, and how dare they let this happen just to appease women and make them feel good, so they reduced the standards.
Wow.
And we talked about the military. And it is nonsense. It is a lie.
Is nonsense.
It's a bold-faced lie.
Yes.
And the truth is, I don't know about the firefighters, I don't know about the Marines, but I know about construction. And I will tell you that women, the few that there are, have much, much better safety records than men do. And you want to know why? It's real easy. Because the men go around showing off and being and all this stuff, whereas women are not that stupid.
I love it. So Barbara, we have 5 more minutes. Are there any parting words of wisdom you would like to share with the generation that's coming up now, and women that are in these fields that are potentially either coming up against it or hopefully won't, but will be able to manage things better?
Yes, the very first thing I like to say about sexual harassment is to put it in perspective.
Okay.
And don't be a victim.
Right.
Don't let some jerk make you feel like less than you are because he says that you got nice legs or something.
Right.
It's not that important. He's a jerk.
Right.
And you can tell him, you're a jerk, and don't talk to me like that. But don't internalize it.
Right.
Don't make it bigger than it is. It is not that big a deal.
Right.
In the scheme of things. It's wrong, but you got to keep it in perspective. So that's the first thing.
Right.
pick your spots. The second thing is when you have something that you know is really reportable, you got to tell the person, the perpetrator, that you are unhappy with that is making you uncomfortable. You have to tell him because otherwise he's going to say he didn't know.
Right.
And you better do it with witnesses around. And I'll tell you something else. Write it all down
Mm-hmm.
and talk to people that you're close with, not people you can't trust, but talk to people that you know will stand up for you if it comes to that.
Right.
On the other hand, I went to a seminar recently with attorneys that represent mostly companies that have people that are accused, but also some victims. And the question came up with, as to whether or not if there is pervasive activity, whether it should be recorded.
Mm.
And you got to be very, very careful with that. Because, and the lawyers were divided on it. And I don't know the answer either, because on one hand you say, I've got proof here, look at it. And on the other hand, you say, entrapment.
Oh.
Got to be very, very careful. The first thing I would do after you've done the things that I've said is you got to report. And it's
Mm-hmm.
hard to report, but you got to report. And you know, the laws against retaliation are very strong. They're better than sexual harassment laws. They may
Okay.
be
That's
better than discrimination law. So if you can show that you reported something and then you were punished, you've got a retaliation claim, and the retaliation claim is good.
good. Okay.
Now, as far as talking to women as young women, you know, the first thing I want them to understand, especially women in non-traditional roles, is that they are not defined by what they do.
Right.
They define what they do.
Mm.
I tell, I am who I am. I'm not, what I do is what I do. It's not who I
Right.
am. And
Mm.
that's a very important thing, especially with women that are in the trades, which there's only 3% when there should be 50% in most trades anyway. Maybe some trades are a little bit harder and maybe only some women can qualify, but for the most part, there should be 50%.
Right.
And one of the things that makes women leave, and they do leave, is the harassment and intimidation. But a big thing is that people associate them with men's jobs and they start feeling less feminine. And they're called
Mm.
more feminine. And they have a crisis of identity because most women, some women don't want to be feminine, that's fine. But most women, that's a part of their psyche. That's a part of it. And to have someone say, you're not a woman. And I
Right.
grew up on this. What's the matter with you? You want to be a man? You're not a woman. What are you?
Mm.
You're a man. I honestly grew up with that. So
Wow.
I know from whence I speak. So having that identity and knowing that this is what I do and this is who I am is an extremely important thing. And there's so many other things that I could say, but I know we're running short of time.
Well, I thank you, Barbara. This was amazing, and I know it helps somebody out there somewhere. And you've got a wealth of wisdom, and I really look forward to what you put out in Masterful You and help guide and direct a lot of women that are coming up in whatever area they are coming up in, because sexual harassment's everywhere. Unfortunately, it's not just in the workplace, and it's not just in the unconventional working places. It's everywhere.
It is
So
everything.
it's I think it's important message. I think it's important to talk about, and I think the more we talk about it, the better it is for everybody who does encompass that or comes out with it and struggles with it, so that they can, rise up a little bit and say, yeah, I might be sexual harassed and I'm going to report it, but I'm also going to do my job.
That's right.
Yeah.
To be the
Excellent.
best you can be and not let anybody diminish you to the extent that you can do that.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, Barbara, I thank you again for joining me. And this is Tina Hull from Masterful You signing off. Have a good night.